Well, as I mentioned, an Ontario senator says Manitoba is essentially, quote, building a jail. That's what their reaction was after visiting the new 72-hour detox facility this weekend in Winnipeg. Senator Kim Pate was in our city, and she was invited here by Winnipeg Centre MP Leah Gazan to check out this 20-room facility at 190 Disraeli Freeway. The detention centre, which was slated to open November 30th, will hold people who are coming down off of using drugs for 72 hours. We have been doing an ongoing series about it after some early people that some early criticism came in from people who saw the first images and video of the spaces, said it looked to them like a jail. We did have an expert on last week in health and mental health facilities and drug addiction facilities saying that there may be reasons behind the design. However, Senator Pate, when she was there a day before the opening date, had serious concerns. Now, Premier Wab Kinew has now pushed that opening to early next week. Pate was not permitted inside, but it didn't stop her from raising her concerns outside. That's where she met with CBC's Gavin Axelrod.
My name is Kim Pate. I'm a senator in the unceded, unsurrendered, unreturned territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation.
I know you're here in Winnipeg today, and we had heard that you were really keen on speaking sort of about Bill 48 and this facility. What sort of has come to your mind, or what have you seen, and what kind of stands out to you about all this?
Well, what's being proposed here, I mean, I understand that there were issues, and in fact I'm here because Member of Parliament Leah Gazan asked me to come, and given my experience on working on things like solitary confinement and imprisonment. And what's really clear here is what may have started with great intention, the idea of providing more housing, more places for people to detox, particularly given the overdose and the opioid crises, is a great objective. But it seems like they've now created more problems by actually building, through the mental health system or through the health system, building a jail and building those units and those cells look like isolation cells. They are isolation cells. And we know that people, particularly Indigenous people, and it's the vast majority of people are on the street, the vast majority of people in prison are Indigenous. We know from the TRC, we know from the Aboriginal Justice Inquiry here in Manitoba, that if we're going to actually interrupt the colonial legacy of residential schools and forced separation from land and community, we need to do something different, not more like this. And I think what we see here is creating more problems. We're likely to see charter challenges to the placement of people for health reasons in a jail setting. We're likely to see people get more traumatized. We're talking about people with mental health and addiction issues, and at a time when internationally people are stopping doing this, not just in prisons, but in mental health settings. The idea of using isolation is recognized as traumatizing. So in sum, what I see is a pretext or an attempt to solve a problem that is creating yet another problem.
Yeah, the Manitoba government, they've said their plan here is that if someone is highly intoxicated on a substance like meth, they could be detained here for up to 72 hours, and there'd be supports and things like that, and they'd provide them an avenue for once they're done. I'm wondering, what do you make of that plan?
I don't see any plan. I've asked for a plan. All I hear is that a new unit has been built with 20 segregation cells, and so that tells me if there is a plan, why isn't it being identified? What are the accountability mechanisms? When you detain someone in custody, right now under the mental health legislation, you can only detain someone for 72 hours if they're having a full mental health assessment. There's no indication that there is a staffing model that will have psychiatrists to that extent in this setting. There's no indication what the follow-up will be. Every community resource I talk to has not been engaged to develop aftercare for folks who would be here. And so it looks like the province doing through the back door what it can't do through the front, which is using the mental health system to create a criminal response. And we know from the Court of Appeal decisions in Ontario and British Columbia on segregation, on prison segregation, that permanent irreparable damage can be caused to people neurologically, physiologically, and psychologically after just a few hours in seg. If we're going to see people being held here who essentially have mental health and addiction issues, who are dealing with the past trauma of abuse, of residential school, of and anesthetizing themselves because of the conditions they're in, then how on earth is that going to assist people?
What do you think should be done? Because part of this is, the Premier has said they want to take people off the streets who are maybe having psychosis and they're posing a danger to themselves and to other people. If a facility like this isn't the answer for you, what should be the answer?
Well, I think providing resources for the kind of housing and supportive housing that many in the community are asking for. So, this is already built. They could take off all those doors and bring together all the community folks. It wasn't hard for me to meet with people at very short notice and to get together with those people and talk about what they see as solutions. And they see a number of things. They see the peer support. They see the fact that if they provide housing and economic supports to people, they'll have a much faster, more effective and long-term solution to this issue. This is a short-term. I would argue it's not a solution. I know that's the attempt of the government to create a solution, but it is likely to be challenged in court. It is likely to be challenged as the province trying to do criminal law responses using a health lens. And it's likely to make the problem far worse. And that's that nobody, I don't believe anybody in the government intends that. But after years of doing this work, I can't see any other way that this is going to unfold except, potentially very tragically.
The government is aiming, they've said end of the month, but it might stretch back, it sounds like, a bit more into December. Do you think the opening of this facility should still go ahead?
Well, if it were up to me, I would not open a facility like this. I have spent the better part of 5 decades working in and around prisons for young people, as well as those designated for men and women, and I have seen no good come from this type of approach.
So quite a statement there, obviously, with someone with some experience with these facilities and understanding them. Gavin Axelrod from CBC out over the weekend in conversation there with Senator Kim Pate. She works in the territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation that encompasses parts of Ontario and Quebec, but she was in Winnipeg on invite by Winnipeg Centre MP Leah Gazan to check out the 20-room facility at 190 Disraeli, the new 72-hour detox facility. So we'll see what happens. This is supposed to officially open. The opening has been delayed now, but there has been some criticism to how it has been designed. You can read online for more. 788, pardon me, give them the phone number, cbc.ca/Manitoba. Well, if you are at home and you're trying to stretch your dollar for making food, or if you're just wanting to get ahead, it is December 1st. Is there anything you can make now? At 6 o'clock, I spoke to Julie Van Rosendaal. She's a food writer, cookbook author, and frequent contributor to CBC Radio.
Good morning.
So happy December. Why don't we start there? Can you make anything as early as right now and freezer store that takes some of the pressure off later in the month?
Oh, definitely. I mean, people who love fruitcake are on it now. There are a lot of things that actually improve with some time, whether in the fridge or, in the freezer. Mincemeat is one of my favorite things. I think it's an often misunderstood ingredient. People often think that it's based on meat. Of course, historically it was. Typically it contains suet, but more commonly it's butter these days. And it's easy to make with, chopped and grated apples and pears, dried fruit like raisins and, figs, apricots, whatever you have, brown sugar, spices. I simmer it on the stovetop and then just keep it in the fridge, all month. And I like to have cookie dough stashed away too. People get really into their holiday baking and try to do it ahead, and it doesn't always last, and baked goods freeze well. Cookies always freeze well, but anything that's baked is more dry and more susceptible to freezer burn. So if you have, shortbread dough, rolled cookie dough, drop cookie dough, all of those things freeze well, stashed away in the fridge or freezer. You can slice and bake, an assortment. You can bake a couple if you just need, you have a cookie emergency. And if you go to cookie exchanges, which is still a thing in my neighborhood, I like to bring rolls of cookie dough for everybody because, who needs 10 dozen baked cookies at a time?
That's no one needs
need
them.
And want.
What about food you can make ahead of time? I always wonder about this because if you have something that's going to bake, like if you're making pies or something, or if you're making even main course things, does anything like that freeze all right, or is it just too early?
No, things like that freeze wonderfully. Pastry freezes beautifully, so that's a great point. I always have some pastry stashed away. I make things like cranberry sauce and put in the freezer. Frozen desserts for Christmas Day. I like doing things like pavlova, which you could do the curd ahead of time. You could do like an icebox cake ahead of time, and if you have meals sort of throughout the holidays, gatherings that aren't necessarily the turkey dinner, uh, doing a one dish meal like a stew or a braise or a soup, anything that has broken down by cooking that has a lot of moisture in it will freeze very well and even get better after some time, a few days in the fridge or some time in the freezer, and really easy to rewarm if you're having people around for Boxing Day or sort of that stretch of time between Christmas and the New Year.
What about costs? I mean, you talked about pears and apples, and all my mind was doing was like adding up cost. And then once we get into talking about chocolate, it's like over. Do you have any advice about that for if you have time now to think about your ingredients, about how to gather things, inexpensively, or ideas on how to shift what you're making?
For sure. I mean, anytime you can take advantage of sales and kind of think flexibly about what you can do with what you find that happens to be on sale. In terms of holiday ingredients, it's like you said, the chocolate is astronomical now. Things like nuts and dried fruit and cheese are very pricey. Fruitcake has always been expensive to make, but now it's just through the roof. So I love things like gingerbread. I love gingerbread. I love sticky toffee pudding, and they also can be made a couple days ahead and improve. They get more complex in flavor after a few days. Simple cookies like, molasses crinkles, shortbread, things with caramel. I often make jars of caramel sauce, which are, just sort of sugar and butter and cream, that I put away to bring as gifts if I'm going to someone's house. It's a little bit more personal. It's cheaper than a bottle of wine. And if you're flexible, turkeys do go on sale after Christmas. They take up so much space in the grocery stores in the freezer section that, often people have to juggle families and work schedules. And if you can have that dinner, after Christmas Day, between Christmas and the New Year, you might get a deal on things like turkeys and ham.
If you are going to be hosting a large group over the holidays, what might you keep in mind to make that a little bit more manageable?
Well, I'm always a fan of the collaborative meal, and people get nervous when you suggest a potluck. But you could give people a category, a salad or a dessert or an appetizer, or have a theme. You could do finger food, if space is an issue and you don't have enough dishes to seat 15 people at the table. You could do appetizers with holiday flavors, turkey meatballs and cranberry dip and that kind of thing. But if you have a theme that you can give people and they can sort of do what works with their time constraints and their financial constraints, something like trifle. I have a friend who's a pastry chef who had a trifle buffet during the holidays years ago, which that kind of thing is such a spectacle when you have a whole table covered with cheese or trifle or something that's sort of a general theme. It can be fun, and everyone wants to bring something anyway. So if you let them contribute, it can really make things easier.
All right, Julie. Well, happy December. Thanks for kicking it off for us.
Thanks. Game on.
Julie Rosendaal is a food writer. We spoke to her at 6. Well, next, just a couple traffic things to mention. Northbound Isabel just past Ross. There's a car up on the median lane there. Also, we got a call on our commuter line. Carter said there's a stalled semi in the east-south perimeter, on the east-south perimeter, in the right lane. That's just before St. Anne's. So stalled semi, eastbound south perimeter, in the right lane just before St. Anne's. So watch it there and call if you have an update. 788-3093 is where you can reach Corey. Well, let's talk sports for a moment, and one that has a particular character to it. Inside indoor fields and rec centers all around the city and the province, one sport is governed by the conscience of its players. As in, there's no refs. Talking about ultimate Frisbee, the players take self-governance and the spirit of sportsmanship to big heights. For Winnipeg team Completely Clueless, team spirit includes writing original parody songs on the sidelines. Players also sometimes wear inflatable costumes on the field. They say it's all about celebrating the good vibes of a sport that needs no judges.
Ultimate Frisbee is about competitive play for sure. It was really built out of a need to want to do something fun out there, something really physical and hard that requires skill. And, throughout the years, there have been many fun teams that do all kinds of interesting things while being really great ultimate players.
Nice pull, unicorn.
We can be good players and maintain the rules ourselves. We don't need referees. We can call our own fouls or, do our best to not infringe on another person's space. And just the whole ethos is quite different. So that's really what makes the game special. And I think people show that in a variety of ways, including, through a cheer or a song.
Way back in the mid-90s when I started playing Ultimate, one of the things that pretty much all the teams did is during the game they would write a song. And when I say write a song, I mean a parody of a song. And then at the end of the game, each team would sing it to one another.
Okay, so rhyme was fine.
That practice has really dwindled, but the Completely Clueless team has felt it's really important to maintain that tradition.
We're playing Ultimate.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
There's no I want to hear him say.
And I'd like just
a lot of people come from other sports to Ultimate and they talk about what a good atmosphere it is, and I feel like they really bring that.
I think they're really fun to play against, and they're a really strong team, and it's good times.
Yeah.
Ultimate.
Okay.
It's the thing that our team is known for doing, is writing these songs and doing them with a certain aplomb.
Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you Clueless.
Ain't past the mind, better flow just fine. Last week's patch was fine. Running down the field with a blue dump truck when the count is high.
Sounds from the sidelines at a local Ultimate Frisbee game where the team spirit is turned up to 11. You heard the voices there of Christina Hunter, Marcus Lenabbit, as well as Emily Lazarick and Jules Will. That was produced, and we're playing it today for you because it was produced by Sisler Creates students. Neva Davies, Aiden Marr, and Sebastian Dusa in collaboration with CBC Manitoba. In the coming weeks, we're going to bring you more stories and videos and sound from the Sisler Creates students. They're learning documentary filmmaking. This is a part of a special post-high school program at the school in collaboration with us here at CBC. If you want to watch their Ultimate Frisbee video, you can go to cbc.ca/Manitoba. Well, here's a quote to set up our next conversation. A climate strategy based solely on regulations and prohibitions will not achieve our climate objectives, end quote. Those are the words of Prime Minister Mark Carney, responding last Thursday to the resignation of Liberal MP Stephen Guilbeault from his cabinet role. Guilbeault left the cabinet because of concerns around Ottawa's new memorandum of understanding with the Alberta government. That agreement grants the province exemptions from several federal environmental regulations. It also pledges political support for an oil pipeline to BC's west coast. In a moment, we're going to have a closer look at this with my next guest to talk about what these exemptions might mean for the future of Canada's climate policy. Warren Mabee is just hooking up on Zoom with us this morning. He's director of Queen's University Institute for Energy and Environmental Policy. Good morning, Warren.
Good morning.
So you've had a few days to digest this agreement. What are some of the environmental exemptions then being carved out for Alberta in this deal?
Yeah, the biggest thing that is in this deal is the removal of any potential cap on oil and gas emissions. So the previous Liberal government had been working on a cap which would have really slowed down or stopped growth in oil and gas production in Alberta. That is no longer on the table, so there is room for growth inside the sector. There's a couple of other carve-outs. There's a carve-out around the clean electricity regulation, which means that Alberta will have a little bit more room to use natural gas in their electricity mix. And then finally, there is the potential to adjust the tanker ban, the tanker moratorium that's currently in place on BC's northwest coast. That would be essential if a pipeline were to be built. So there's quite a few things built into this MOU that will really change that policy landscape.
And what do you make of what the PM said, that to get national buy-in on climate solutions, we have to be less restrictive. We can't rely only on regulation. What do you make of that argument?
So I understand where the Prime Minister is coming from. I think that one of the things that has happened over the last few years is that there's been a lot of fights between the provinces and Ottawa over the regulatory approach. Many people have said that it's too restrictive. There's not enough options built in to move forward, and it's slowing down economic productivity and growth. What the Prime Minister, I think, is signaling is, well, okay, we can look at other ways of dealing with issues. There is a heavy focus on technology fixes inside of this policy. So we're starting to see more talk about carbon capture, for instance, more talk about nuclear power. These are ways that greenhouse gas emissions can be cut down while growth potentially continues.
Is carbon capture, how effective is carbon capture as a strategy to curb emissions, though?
So as a technology, it definitely works. We've seen it. It's been demonstrated. We know that we can move carbon, from an emission flow into the ground and sequester it over a long period. The real issue has always been cost. It's an expensive technology. It takes a long time to build it out, and it really can impact the profitability of an oil and gas operation, which is not surprising. You're having to capture a lot of the emissions and move them back into the ground. What needs to happen is innovation to bring down those costs. We are seeing language about building out the Pathways project that presumably will help address costs by moving this to a scale that makes more sense. But I think that there's still a lot of work to be done to really make this technology as powerful as I think it needs to be.
Is Alberta, because of this, do you think Alberta is going to play ball in the future? When the feds come back and say, now we want you to cooperate on a federal climate strategy?
I would like to think so. We're already seeing signals that, some people feel that this MOU goes nowhere near far enough. Other people are saying it goes far too far. So whether the Carney government has really struck the right balance remains to be seen. We do have a previous example of a Liberal government that built a pipeline but failed to receive a lot of concessions from Alberta in conversations after that. So that is worrisome. The one thing that I do take away from this is that the Premier of Alberta was really involved in writing this MOU. And therefore, I think that this government is more friendly and open to these conversations. And I think that this Liberal government has been far more open to conversation and to concession than previous governments have been. So I have some hope.
Conversation and concession, although, of course, BC is going to see that differently. In Manitoba, I know for a lot of our strategies, our Premier has been really clear and said, we're really going to always be negotiating with First Nations and Indigenous peoples on the lands before we do or think about anything. And that is not the case here. So how do you think other provinces are going to respond to all of this?
So you raise an excellent point. We've already heard from BC that, the government of BC is not happy with this MOU. I do question the timing of the Prime Minister to release an MOU with one province before really working some of these issues out. The point about First Nations is critical. There is a duty to consult. There are, hereditary territories that these pipeline projects would have to pass through. And I think this is the wrong way to do it, to announce in advance that something's going to happen and then start the conversation. The Prime Minister does need to focus on those relations. I think every Premier ultimately is probably going to want their own MOU. And that is also challenging for the government because it means that they're basically going to have to write 13 separate policy agreements across the country. It's a lot, and it's hard to actually achieve goals when you've got so many different directions.
And it'll be fascinating to see whether or not that's a style thing that we've never seen before, because we have a prime minister that hasn't been a politician. Any politician looking at 13 MOUs would probably go, no, wait a minute. But if you're coming at this economically, and this is what he was like, obviously, elected to do, which kickstart the economy and looking at it. I mean, he's been a banker. That's what his business background is. He might not think 13 MOUs is going to be problematic or overwhelming. And so we'll see what he does with all of this and what happens in the country. Warren, thank you for being with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
That's Warren Mabee, Director of Queen's University Institute for Energy and Environmental Policy, with us live on Zoom on CBC this morning. Parents in Flin Flon, Manitoba still cannot plan on giving birth there. And that has them feeling forgotten by the local health region, they say. The only full-time obstetrician at the Northern Manitoba City's hospital left years ago. Since then, locals have had to go away to grow their families, as you might have heard a bit on the news this morning. We have a full report next from the CBC's Lauren Scott.
Morning, Marcy.
So when did Flin Flon lose access to birthing services?
Yeah, I wanted to start off by showing you a picture.
Okay, I'm looking at your iPhone here.
Yeah, you see this boy on the left there. His name is Dempsey. He's
Adorable.
the one holding the purple flower. Today is his 7th birthday. And he was one of the first babies who had been born outside the city after the closure. It started years back when the Flin Flon General Hospital suspended birthing services in November 2018 after its full-time obstetrician left months before. Dempsey's mother, Logan Church, was under a month away from her due date when she found out she couldn't give birth in Flin Flon. She told me it felt crazy how fast the community lost access. She had to drive more than 5 hours to stay with her auntie in Dauphin in the winter cold with her eldest son, Dominic, who was just 22 months old at the time.
I'm like in labor trying to give birth, and I also have this baby there because we are not around our family now, right? Like now we're being completely removed from our community, from our support system. We had no grandparents to keep the baby while we went to give birth. Like it was just everything was turned upside down. And then to make it even crazier, we were released before our baby was even 24 hours old. So now we're driving back to Flin Flon with a baby that's less than 24 hours in the winter, and it's a 6-hour drive. So it was, every part of it was so insane. I was just like so stressed out, so overwhelmed the entire time.
What kind of access to obstetrics care do they have then?
Well, Flin Flon is kind of the medical hub for the area, and communities on both sides of the Manitoba-Saskatchewan border actually rely on the services there. That includes folks from Baker's Narrows, Sheridan, Cranberry Portage on the Manitoba side, but it also includes folks from Creighton, Denair Beach, Pelican Narrows on the Saskatchewan side. Despite this being a hub, though, access to obstetrics care is pretty limited in Flin Flon. The Northern Health Region told me that an OBGYN from the PAW comes to the city twice a month. And they usually meet with patients who are between 28 and 30 weeks pregnant or sooner if they have a high-risk pregnancy. But no matter what, they still have to leave town to give birth.
So where do they go?
Well, most people drive an hour and a half south down Highway 10, passing forest and lakes until they reach the PAW. But some have traveled as far as Saskatoon or here in Winnipeg to give birth, actually. While I was in Flin Flon, I met with Kelsey Ronson. She's due in just under 2 weeks now, and she plans to be induced in the PAW on December 12th. But she's really worried about going into labor before then. Here's what she told me.
By the time you figure out that you're actually in labor and that it's not, just Braxton Hicks or something like that, well then, if you have a very quick labor and delivery, chances are you're delivering on the highway.
Kelsey gave birth to her daughter at the Flin Flon Hospital about 10 years ago, when that was still an option. Her home, where I met her, was just a 5-minute drive away, which was really helpful because she told me that her labor and delivery was pretty quick. It lasted about 4 hours. But she's worried this time around it'll go even quicker. And with a long drive to the PAW, she's worried that she might not make it in time before she goes into labor on the 12th.
I'm stressed for these people, while you're telling the story, just thinking about it. Parents have had to do this then, just to go back to the beginning, for 7 years?
Yeah, 7 years. It's a really long time to be without access. It's actually taken so long that a local advocacy group that focused on reopening the obstetrics unit has disbanded. The We Want Birth Committee used to protest outside the hospital. They used to meet with health region officials and lobby politicians to bring the birthing service back. But I spoke to former member Shannon Michelle, who told me that the group sort of gave up hope. And she said they stopped meeting more than 3 years ago.
So has the closure affected family planning over the years then?
Shannon actually told me she decided to stop having children because of it. She moved to Flin Flon shortly before the services ended and found out she was pregnant just a few weeks after moving. But she said it was a high-risk pregnancy and she wouldn't have been able to give birth in Flin Flon anyways. But for her, the regular travel to Winnipeg for appointments was exhausting.
Personally, for me, the fact that we didn't have an obstetrics unit here did stop me from having another child, just because of the complications that I had with my first and not wanting to travel to the city every 3 weeks, but I did, and not having somebody here in case there was an emergency or anything like that. It definitely stopped me from having another child.
So the daughter that she had then has remained an only child since.
What does the health region say about all of this?
Well, Northern Health told me that the demand for obstetric service remains low in Flin Flon. The health region said it continues to monitor patient volumes and service needs in the surrounding area served by the hospital. But Shannon questions whether that low demand claim is true. She said she knows 4 people who've had babies over the summer, and she doesn't think that demand is slowing down. And she actually thinks that the birthing void is putting community members at risk. You know, I got to speak with Deputy Mayor Alison Dallas-Funk, and she told me that some parents will take the risk of staying in town until they go into labor. You see, the hospital will do emergency deliveries in the ER if absolutely necessary. But she told me that sometimes ER doctors aren't comfortable with delivering babies, and people are sent away. All high-risk pregnancies or possible complications have to leave too. Here's what the deputy mayor told me.
Women will stay and try to wait until they're in labor to not have to go. Now, you don't know if there's going to be complications, so you're putting yourself at risk. It's going to take one woman doing that and then one child being lost or one woman being lost for this health region to realize how important that is.
It's really, when it's framed that way, it's an incredible risk to try and take to stay in Flin Flon and take that risk. What else did she say about the impacts this has had on the community?
Yeah, she said it's likely hurting economic and population growth too, and that's super important for any community, but especially since the Hudbay mine closed a few years ago. She said it's hard for families to consider building a home in Flin Flon without access to birthing services.
You want your community to grow. How do we have economic growth? How do we keep people here if we can't say to a young family or people choosing to come here for work, yeah, you can grow your family here. Don't worry, we'll take care of you. We can't say that.
We heard this joke from multiple people. There's sort of a saying in Flin Flon that you can make a baby in Flin Flon, but you can't have a baby here.
I heard that when we were up there too.
Yeah.
Parents feeling about all this then?
It's a real range of emotions, Marcy. So some parents expressed fear, anger, frustration at how long this has taken. For Logan, one of the first mothers affected, she felt overlooked and forgotten. That's something that she felt would never happen to those of us who live here in Winnipeg.
Unfortunately, here, a lot of the time, I feel like we're often kind of forgotten, kind of isolated. And like, I feel like if it were roles reversed and we had to tell people in the South, like, you got to drive up to Flin Flon to give birth, like, there would be massive outrage. And it wouldn't last for long.
And Kelsey, who is due in just under 2 weeks, said she's really worried. Her fingers are crossed that everything goes to plan because she can't just drive up the road 5 minutes to the hospital anymore.
I'm definitely a little more worried about this one, just having to make it to the paw and all.
The lack of services has made what should be an exciting time a stressful one, she said.
Thanks for bringing us the story, Lauren. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Lauren Scott is a reporter with CBC Manitoba. You can read her full web story at cbc.ca/Manitoba. What an interesting story, right? Came up repeatedly in Flin Flon. I'm glad she was able to dig in there. After visiting 30 countries, it was Canada that won her heart. Now a woman is sharing her Japanese culture through a bakery and restaurant here in Winnipeg. CBC Manitoba's community reporter Shannah-Lee Vidal has more.
3 years ago, Yuka Katahira started up her business, Yuka's Bakery. She worked in a shared commercial kitchen, selling her goods at markets and pop-ups. Now, she's opening her own Japanese bakery and restaurant in Winnipeg's West End neighborhood.
Not so many people doesn't know what is a Japanese baking. I started my own Japanese bakery because I already know the flavors.
Born in Japan, Katahira had ambitions of becoming a professional motorcycle racer like her father. But injuries sidelined that dream, so she grabbed her passport and began a global trek, traveling to more than 30 countries. Unexpectedly, she found work as a pastry chef, and baking revved up a new passion.
Lots of people like cute things, so have a bear on the face is really cute. That attracts people too. Personally, I like cute things too.
While traveling, she visited Winnipeg and liked it so much she never left.
I like Winnipeg more than bigger city because I grew up in a very busy place.
But she discovered there was a missing ingredient to this recipe.
When I came to Winnipeg, I get to know it's not so many Japanese populations. And I couldn't find authentic Japanese bakery. When I come here, everything too sweet for me. And if I can introduce Japanese baking, and the people get to know a little part of our cultures.
The items on her menu are a callback to the foods she grew up with.
Cream bun is most popular, so I use the cream bun for my logo. It's full of Japanese custard cream inside and not overly sweet, but it's very rich. And we have a bear sweet roll that's very fluffy bun, nothing inside, slightly sweet and a cute face on top. Tonkatsu and gyoza, that's a dumpling, and we have a korokke. Tea is very popular in Japan, and especially my dad family side has tea on the tea garden near Mount Fuji area, so we can get the tea from there as well.
Food has become Katahira's love language to the place that won her heart.
And maybe I can share the little part of my culture through food.
The opening of Yuka's Bakery is seasoned with extra support, thanks to a visit from Mom and Dad who came across the ocean for the big moment.
Hopefully I can support the community and work together and grow together.
Shannah-Lee Vidal, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Those little cream buns with the bear face on them smiling at you as you're chomping down. That looks delicious. If you were watching on YouTube, you got to see that. Yuka's Bakery's on Sargent Avenue. Thanks to CBC's community reporter Shannah-Lee Vidal for checking it out and bringing us that business story, and also videographer Jason Emsom. A very serious story that we're going to build on that you may have been hearing in the news this morning. Police and Manitoba's families ministers say they are investigating after a 6-year-old girl in foster care suffered life-altering injuries in a Winnipeg home. CBC has obtained documents that shed new light on what police say happened. I-Team reporter Michelle Allan is in with more details. Good morning.
Good morning.
First, we are going to put even a stronger warning on this if you're listening. It does contain this story graphic details that may be upsetting to some listeners. What happened to this girl?
Well, as you said, the details are quite challenging to hear. We already knew that the girl was taken from the Winnipeg foster home in critical condition, but we've learned now the search warrant documents give us a little bit of a clearer look at what police believe happened. As we reported into September, police charged a 25-year-old foster mom with aggravated assault, and failing to provide the necessities of life. She is currently in custody. The documents we obtained now say the 6-year-old girl's spine was fractured in multiple places and she was covered in severe bruises. They also say it looked like she had tape burns around her mouth and that there were small stab wounds on the bottoms of her feet. Police say that the foster mom admitted to police that she slammed the little girl on the ground multiple times and that the foster parents didn't call for help until the next day after they found she wasn't moving. The documents say she was paralyzed and may never walk again.
What kind of reactions have you heard to this?
We spoke to Manitoba's Families Minister, Nahani Fontaine, and she says they're conducting an internal investigation into how this happened.
I think that all of us can agree that children shouldn't be abused. And so folks can be assured that we're doing everything within the department to get down to the bottom of what happened and to ensure that we are working towards preventing that.
What has the Families Department learned so far then during their investigation?
We didn't get a ton of information because of the privacy rules, but Fontaine says the investigation is meant to identify ways to stop kids from falling through gaps in the system.
The goal would be to ensure that we're preventing any abuse and ensuring that we're looking at what occurred within the system to allow this child to face this amount of abuse and what I would characterize as abominable abuse.
The Child and Family Services Act is pretty strict about privacy to protect the children in care, so we don't have a ton of further specific details about the department's investigation. Pretty much everything we do know comes from the search warrant documents we obtained. They say the couple actually had multiple foster children at the time, and police are investigating currently whether any of the other children were assaulted.
What kind of change are people calling for?
We asked the Manitoba Advocate for Children and Youth, Shannah-Lee about that and where the gaps people are pointing to in the system currently. She says it's more complicated than just any one single policy failure.
There's a lot of layers involved, especially in all systems. You know, you have government, you have the agencies, directors, board of directors. But I think most of all, you know, the children are falling through the cracks when there is a lack of oversight.
One of the things that stood out in the search warrant documents to us was that officers at the scene told the investigators that the little girl's bed sheets were soaked in urine, which made them believe that when they found her, she had been laying in bed with her injuries for an extensive period of time, possibly, unable to move because of how injured she was. A respite worker told police she last saw the girl the day before police think she was probably injured, according to the documents. The worker was scheduled to help the foster parents with childcare for the next 2 days, but the worker didn't actually physically see the girl. While at their home on September 18th, the worker didn't enter the girl's bedroom because the foster parents told her the girl was sick and was sleeping. Police say the foster mom admitted to slamming the girl on the ground multiple times that same evening. The worker was scheduled to come back the next morning when police think she was stuck lying in bed injured. But the worker didn't come to the house at all that day because the foster parents said the girl was sick. The girl didn't receive any medical attention until later that night.
How often are CFS workers supposed to check in on kids in care?
Well, the policy is that children are seen at least every 30 days. It can be up to once a week for kids who are considered to be in more high-risk situations, but 30 days is the minimum standard. Sherry Gott told me that more resources are needed to ensure that this actually happens.
What could be done to ensure more children are being physically seen in person, meeting that 30-day standard?
Well, you know, I always refer back to the late Phoenix Sinclair inquiry, and there was a recommendation from the commissioner at that time that a caseload of 20 per worker, 20 case files per worker was one of the recommendations that was made. And I know the system has worked really hard to meet that need, to meet that requirement. But what happens is that because of the revolving doors in child welfare, people come and go. So if one social worker leaves, another social worker assumes that caseload. So, and then you have 40 cases, so, you know, and you have 30 days.
A lot of Manitobans who've lived here for a long time are thinking about Phoenix Sinclair. And that image, that it's like this embedded in our minds image of this baby wearing this little pink outfit who was just left and then died. And change was supposed to be coming. And here we are talking about this horrific case. Before you go this morning, Michelle, remind us once again, where are these foster parents now?
So the 25-year-old foster mom was charged with assault, aggravated assault, and failing to provide the necessities of life. She's currently in custody, and we believe she's due back in court later this month. The 26-year-old foster dad was arrested but hasn't been officially charged, and the police investigation is still underway.
All right. Thank you for coming in. Michelle Allan, reporter with CBC Manitoba's I-Team. Michelle will have more on the story on CBC News at 6 tonight. You can read more details on our website. Also, if you have a tip for the I-Team, you can always call their confidential tip line at 204-788-3744. You can email them the letter iteam@cbc.ca. And I'm just going to make a straight appeal here. Over the years of doing journalism in this province and trying to do something meaningful about how we change our system to better protect kids, one of the challenges that often we come up against as journalists is talking to people within the system, talking to people who are doing the work to try to help kids and maybe feel overwhelmed by caseloads or maybe has some information to share that would help us do the work to understand the system better. Remember that what I just said there is that it's a confidential tip line, and you can also call us on our morning show listener line if you have something valuable to share with us that will help us all understand the system better in Manitoba and move forward to protect kids. So we don't have the horrific stories like this story again this morning. You can reach out to CBC. It is 204-788-3205. So the holiday season is going to be in full swing very shortly here. We flipped the calendar to December 1st, and it's Cyber Monday, so a lot of people today might be thinking about buying online. That also means, though, there's more opportunity for these so-called porch pirates to strike. Despite having a surveillance camera and 2 big dogs, a Winnipeg woman says her freshly delivered package from Amazon was stolen on her front porch in the Crestview neighborhood. That's in the south end of the city. It happened in broad daylight. The package contained Christmas presents for her grandchildren. Marian Henry is here to tell us more. And by the way, she also happens to be the director of program operations at the Better Business Bureau of Central Canada. But she's here with her story. Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, lousy. So how'd you find out the packages were gone?
Well, we do get notifications from Amazon when our packages are delivered. So when I got home, I said to my husband, "Oh, where are the boxes?" And he said, "Well, there weren't any boxes." So, of course, we looked on our camera and we saw that the 2 packages that we were expecting were delivered about 9:30 in the morning, and went through the cameras a little bit later and saw that someone picked them up off our porch at 12:54.
Got it. Now, is your just so people know, because sometimes people get it in their heads, well, this won't happen to me because is your porch front facing the street? Is there a long walk up to it from the sidewalk? Like, what's the what does it look like?
Our porch is visible. For sure. We have a corner property, so, our porch is not enclosed in any way, shape, or form. It probably is more...
This isn't putting the onus on you, by the way. We all have front porches that you can see. I'm just trying to get a visual for the radio listeners.
I think it's probably something that would be more visible, more favorable to have something like that. But, of course, we've never had something like that happen in the past. And just as you said, we never thought that would happen to us.
For sure.
As you mentioned, we have 2 big dogs and signs, beware of dog and beware of cameras on our property. So we, really didn't think that this would happen to us. But, you can see it very clearly that he came, right up to the porch, picked the packages off, and off he went.
They've been showing on YouTube because you shared the surveillance footage with us, so listeners that are watching our show on YouTube can see this. So really just like casually walks up the stairs. It's not like there's a rush or anything, and then there he is, just takes the boxes and walks away across your lawn. Mm-hmm. Why did you think nothing like this would happen? How is your neighborhood for this kind of activity?
I would think that overall that I would consider our neighborhood a very safe neighborhood. We don't have a lot of loitering. We don't have a lot of kids walking up and down the roads. Lots of families walking their dogs. Because we're sort of on a corner, there's people from all sorts of areas very close to our neighborhood out and about all the time. So we would just never have thought that would happen to us.
What was stolen?
Well, we had ordered some Christmas presents for our grandchildren, and that's what was in the packages, as well as a couple of Christmas ornaments.
How much monetarily did you lose then?
About $100.
Okay. When you saw the footage and then this happens to you, what was your feeling?
I think when anything like this happens, you have a feeling of vulnerability or a feeling of, being sort of targeted, so to speak. My husband's first reaction was, well, put in a police report, which we did. We did also then contact Amazon, which they were very gracious in refunding the parcels right away, and we were able to reorder them.
Got it. What you did file a report in the end with police. What did you tell you, and what was involved in filing that, out of curiosity?
It was very easy to file. When we called the non-emergent line, we were advised that we had to put it in online.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just a case of describing, what happened, and, probably took about 5 minutes. It was a very easy process. One thing that it didn't allow us to do was, we were able to upload photos, but not the video. We have since been contacted by the city police and given a link to upload the videos, so they have that as well.
So how did you have photos? Was it screenshots then of the video?
Well, that's what we ended up doing, because we originally couldn't upload the video to the police report. We did just run the video and screenshot it to get pictures of the entire sort of situation, and then uploaded those videos, pictures.
What do they tell you? I'm just curious, and maybe you didn't have an exchange with police this directly, but I'm just curious whether or not police say there's a good chance that we can catch this person because they're on video, or we're hearing about this a lot. Don't get your hopes up. I'm wondering what police told you in the exchange.
Absolutely nothing like that. Of course, just that they'll look into it and see what they can do. From a statistical perspective, in Canada, I'll just put on my BBB hat for a moment there. There was, annually, Canadians do see about $783 million worth of loss of package theft every year. And that's, we also see about 23% of Canadians indicating that over the period of their life that they have been, at some point or another, victim of a package theft. Mm. My situation is very indicative of what the average value loss tends to be on those that are reported. And this statistical amount is $123, which is the average that people do lose through property theft or package theft. Mm. Unfortunately, having an item delivered to your house doesn't guarantee that you're going to get it, of course, because you're always at that risk. And especially this type of thing, package theft, is a crime of opportunity. So with the increase of online shopping that we're seeing through the holiday season, there's that much more of a risk to consumers to be, consumers like me, being victim to that.
Yeah, all of us are at risk if you order online, right? Have you changed your online shipping or shopping at all because of this, or maybe delivery-wise? Have you thought about anything, on the front porch, maybe, given that this has happened to you?
Yeah, my husband, his first reaction was, well, what are we going to do about this moving forward?
Yeah.
So he's actually ordered a lockbox.
Okay.
That package lockbox that you can put things into, but you can't take things out of, to put on our porch, because it is sort of out in the middle of nowhere. We've also, in the meantime, and before we have that set up, we've set up all of our Amazon packages and stuff to be delivered to an alternate location on our property as opposed to at our front door.
Smart.
And of course, wherever possible, we're going to try to have things delivered to a store. If we're ordering it and it can be delivered to a store as opposed to our home, I think we're going to do that.
Go for the storefront thing.
Yeah.
I appreciate that you're here with two hats on, right? You're sharing your story, which we can all learn a lot from, and so many people have been in this situation, but also in the Better Business Bureau situation. What do you want to leave people with this morning in terms of what they should keep in mind as we head really into this online shopping season, and then it's Cyber Monday, so a lot of people will look online today and be ordering things.
Right. Well, I think I have sort of 6 tips that I would leave with people as far as that. And one would be, if you are expecting a package, attempt to schedule that delivery for when you are going to be at home. Or if you're not going to be at home, maybe ask your neighbors if they could hold the package until you get there, if you are going to be gone for an extended period of time. Some retailers, like Amazon and other online retailers, do offer alternate delivery situation, so you can ask them to put it by your garage or put it in your back door.
Change the area.
Change where they're going to put it. If you're purchasing from a retailer that does have a physical location in your area, so let's say you go into the store or you're ordering online and they have an option to deliver to the store, take that option, because lately they're going to ask for ID and have you sign for that package when you are in the store. And if you do know that there's porch pirates in your area, normally porch pirates will stick to a certain area for a length of time. So they're going to hit a lot of houses in the same area before they move on to another area. So if you've heard that there things like that happening in your area, looking at a lockbox or renting a post office box that you can ship things to, so they're not going to be sitting on your property, especially for us that work full-time during the day and we're not home when packages are necessarily delivered.
Lousy that this happened to you. Thank you for the advice, though, and I'm glad that obviously you got it resolved and you'll have the gifts back for the grandkids.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
Yeah. They'll be happy too. We're not saying what's in the boxes because we don't want to spoil that surprise.
They're too little to know.
Marian Henry's been in with us this morning, a Winnipegger who had her packages stolen just over a week ago. She's also, with the other hat on, the Director of Program Operations at the Better Business Bureau of Central Canada. Winnipeg Police, by the way, are investigating this incident. They say there's been an uptick in calls about property thefts like this one, and that it is not unusual given this time of year. Police say people expecting deliveries, just to reiterate some of what we heard from Marian as well, do say and make sure those packages are hidden out of sight if possible when delivered. Arrange to have them sent to a friend or family member's home if they can be home to receive them. And if you want information, Winnipeg Police have a website with tips all about this.